sometimes I rhyme slow. Sometimes I rhyme quick. Let's talk about the Sega Genesis. My favorite 16-bit system. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, no problems. We talked about my favorite games last night with the Super Nintendo. Tonight, it's Sega's turn. And like I said, Sega holds a special place in my heart. I mentioned Ghouls and Ghosts. That was probably my favorite game. There was two other ones I like. All of these are kind of very similar. They were all side-scrolling action games. Strider, just, it was cool. You could run up buildings, and the sword, like, it just looked like a laser or something. It was just like pew, pew, pew. And I just remember the action was really fast-paced, but it wasn't too hard. Like, maybe I had it on normal difficulty or something, but it had a new age feel to it, like a next-gen feel before the next-gen came out. And so, Strider, I need to get the one for the PS3 that just came out, the remix, the HD remix, because if it's anything like the original, I'll love it. And Revenge of Shinobi. Now, I had Shinobi on the Sega Master System, which was a great game. It was, you could throw Chinese stars or kick, and wolves and ninjas and stuff would come at you. Well, with the one for the Genesis, there was a lot of cool little things, like Spider-Man was in it. There was a Spider-Man cameo on the plane level. I think you had to go up to the highest level on the plane, or I can't remember what it was. But the fighting mechanics of that game were at the time exactly how I liked the fighting mechanics to go. And the upgrades and stuff in that system really worked well. It worked like a Ghouls and Ghosts, where I think you broke open a box or something and you got upgrades. So yeah, I don't think they ever rebooted that series, which is probably a good thing, because you could never outdo the original in that. Like, all it would be just another game brought into the new generation and given an old name on top of it, just painted on top. But yeah, the Genesis for me, I mean, Golden Axe, Altered Beast. Altered Beast, I think, came with it. That was the one where you could turn into the different monsters and fight. Golden Axe was cool because you had the weapons, plus you could pick people up and throw them. Oh, you know what game I forgot to mention that I really liked was the original wrestling game for the Sega Master System. This is as much a note for me to remember when I review this later so I can look it up, as it is to you to check this game out. I remember it was I loved it. But it was terrible. It was terribly awful. Nintendo had the WWF one, but the Sega Master System, for some reason, for whatever reason, they were little mushed up wrestlers, and they could go off the top rope and drop elbows, and you had to pin your opponent. Obviously, blah blah blah. There was a count out, and then I saw the Nintendo one, and I was just like blown away. Like, different characters, different moves. Like, I think you got a clothesline, whip off the rope, off the top rope, and I think you could leave the ring. But I think that's all you could do in that game. But I liked it. I really did. It was a lot of fun. It was easy, but it was kind of like a cheap app for a phone or something, or a free app or something. So yeah, that's my 16-bit review. So you got your first gen is Atari 2600. Nothing competed with it. There was nothing to compete with. The second generation, you got Nintendo Entertainment System and the Sega Master System. Nintendo was a better system. It had better games. It had Castlevania, it had Mario, it had Tetris, it had a lot of things. And at some point, the Sega Master System was just like, but it had good games. Afterburner was the best jet game I'd ever played at the time. Like I said, I love the wrestling game. And what was my favorite game? Miracle Warrior Sailor Dark Lord. There's phenomenal. That alone warrants the purchase of a Sega Master System, because you couldn't get that on Nintendo. Oh no, you couldn't. No. You ever hear that cat talks? It goes, no. It's funny. You should look it up. You know what else is funny? Games, sometimes. Comedy, jokes. N64 and PlayStation. Okay, so I skipped the Sony system this round. I believe it was called a Saturn. There might have been one more system in between, but I had lost my interest, but not my love of Sega. Nonetheless, this was Saturn came out, then the N64 or the PlayStation. I can't remember the order. I could probably look it up. Not going to. I thought I had it saved up there. So, I'm gonna go with the PlayStation. Here's an interesting story. Yeah, it was my PlayStation. I had gone away for New Year's one year. One of the years I was living with pretty much Corey and Gary and a bunch of other people who just came and lived there for a while. Some paid rent, some didn't. And I went up to New Year's. I can't remember what year it was. 95, 96, 97. No idea. When I came back to discover that they traded my PlayStation in for an N64 because they were tough to get at the time, and I guess they got a used one in. So I came home and I don't have a PlayStation anymore. Nonetheless, Gary had one, or Corey, or someone left one there. So we had both systems. And I didn't like the N64 because I didn't like the controller. It had that weird middle piece, and it was just dumb. This is the fall of Nintendo. A lot of their concepts are really cool. They really are. You know, the Wii U is cool. They were the first one to introduce the game tablet with the game, and like being able to like even just keep a map or do whatever down there. I mean, it's a good idea, but they're executing it all wrong, or people just aren't grasping onto it. Nonetheless, this was the beginning of the end. N64 went over great. GoldenEye, people say it's one of the best games of all time. There was not a single game that I can remember on N64 except for two that I enjoyed playing. I remember Turok was pretty good too. I watched Artie play that a lot. But Mario Kart 64, when we get that new Mario Kart, it was still really good. Like, the newer additions to that series have been okay. Maybe I'm just getting too old. Like I said, I can do this. I can do this or this. I can do, you know, third gen. I'm still pretty good, even though you've added some buttons or whatever. It was the next system, the leap, that from the Genesis to N64 and PlayStation, where all of a sudden you've got 4 buttons here, 2 in the middle, 8-way directional, 2 analog controllers, and 4 shoulder buttons. Like, sometimes the combination of things that had to occur, like, my mind just doesn't process things that way. I can't do it. Like, if I can take my time in a game and do things, I'm good. That's the kind of game I like. I'm just not good at... Resident Evil was my first disappointment. I'll get to that in a second because that's on my PlayStation list. So, N64, Mario Kart, I always loved that series, and this was great. It was great for the N64. And Mario 64, that was a game changer. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first 3D Mario where you could collect the stars. They're always in these weird spots. You're like, how the hell do you get to that? But that was my goal in the game, so it made me good at that game. I was very good at the Mario 64. And I'm proud of it. It got me very far in life. So yeah, N64, that's all I got for you. I didn't like the controller, I didn't like the system really, but I had no choice in owning it. My PlayStation, on the other hand, I got 4 games I have to talk about, because they're all absolutely huge parts of my gaming history, and I'm sure a lot of your gaming history. I'm going to leave number 2 until last, because this is the game that started me on a path. Now, PlayStation had Resident Evil. This may take... Alright, it's 9 minutes. This may take 10 minutes. I remember the first night we got this. Gary and Brian worked at GameStop at the mall. Or it was EB Games at the time. And Ed ran the place. He worked at Fair, at King Richard's Fair, and he always played an elf. I liked Ed. He had a good family. He was a nice guy. But some people go that next step that I'm just not into. Like, all right, you're taking it a little, in my opinion, not in the general consensus, but just I'm a nerd, but like I don't dress up. I've never been a big dress up guy, and like I enjoy going to King Richard's Fair to like look at the merchandise and eat the food, and as long as I don't got to use my hands. If I can bring a fork and knife, I'm good to go. And just be there for the day and watch the tournaments and stuff. It's fun, especially if you can bring the kids or whatever. But I'm not gonna dress up and I'm not gonna role play. I don't know what it is. Like I can role play when I'm playing D&D with my friends or whatever, and I really enjoy it. I love when someone else gets into it and you just get locked into a heated battle or something like that. Oh, I've got some really good. I've run games before, not often, where I've made people cry. Like I've inspired that. I know that sounds well, I don't know if it sounds super nerdy or pompous. Maybe it's pompy. Nerdous. That's a good word. I'm gonna write that down. Nerdous. Maybe that's a character. Maybe that's who rides Block of Corn into battle. Nerdous. Block. Sometimes I just gotta stop and write down notes. Now, because I just forgot to write down the last thing I was just gonna write. D&D. D&D. Crying. Story. Trav. Goad. Etc. Maybe I'll tell you the whole history of Athalia at some point, like my world. Because it's got like a good 2,000 years worth of history that I could tell you about. I had plans for, further on down the line, but nothing previous to that. I have a cool world. You guys should totally check it out. It's called Athalia. Sometimes I just catch myself and I realize, holy shit, if anyone normal could hear you right now, which I'm not saying you guys aren't normal, but it's pretty nerdy. Let's go on to PlayStation. Resident Evil. Gary and Brian were working at EB Games, and if they were opening the next day, they may be known to borrow a few games. And then they'd bring them back in the morning, which is fine. I think it was a policy that was okay to do as long as it was a used game or something like that. But I remember we played some weird ass games because like we'd get some weird gaming systems and like they would have like those games at EB Games. I remember for a while they'd have like a few Atari games. Like they would still take in old system games. I don't think they do that anymore, which they should. They're sitting on a goddamn landmine. If they started taking retro games at EB Games, which I kind of don't want them to do because I like the market being in the hands of the independent guys that go out there and find these games and sell them online, and there's value to them. But yeah, so anywho, he brought home Resident Evil. The first night he brought that home was just me, him, and Brad, I think. I don't even think Corey was there. Maybe Corey was there. He's probably asleep in the corner or something, though. And we plugged it in, and you watch the intro to the game, and you go into this mansion, and you're just like, what the hell is going on here? And you start exploring rooms. And in the first few rooms, you don't really run into anything. You just see things, or you can read letters, and you're like, wow, this is weird. It's like the third room you get to on either side. On the right-hand side, you get to a hall that's just like another hall you've gone down or something, and you just walk by these windows. Well, when you get to the last window, spoiler alert, Resident Evil for PlayStation, first one, a hellhound bursts through the window, and we all nearly shit ourselves. Like, it was that terrifying. They did such a good job. We had all the lights off and everything, because we heard this was these goddamn spiders. I don't normally kill spiders. I want you guys to know this. But that's a brown recluse, and that can cause some damage. Did I get him? Yeah. Normally, like I said, I don't kill spiders. I'll bring them outside. Even black widows, because they're easy to contain. But brown recluse, that's the second one I've seen in here the last few days. You can tell because they have a violin pattern on their back. and it's the only way you can really kind of identify them. Usually I don't like to get that close to find out. If it looks like a brown recluse, I'm not going to lie to you. Oh, I screwed something up there. I'm going to kill it. I don't normally kill anything but spiders. There's only 2 poisonous spiders in Virginia, and I can identify them very easily. So normally I don't make a mistake. And like I said, with black widows, I'll let them back out in the woods because they eat bad things and stuff. This is really going to freak me out, though, now. The rest of the night I'm going to be all itchy. I'm going to have to look at that before this goes up online. Now that I think I can dump down a video. Where did you go, you devil creature? Then I think I might be able to work something out here. We'll wait and see. Alright, I'm going to be freaked out, but I'm going to try. For you, I'm going to power forward. I can't remember what system it was. I think it was the PlayStation, the first Madden game I played. I hope he didn't go my drink. I'd be really upset. I'd just take him out. I'm going to build up my immunity to brown recluse poison anyway. You know how it is. Oh, creepy bastards. And if you went the other way, like one way was shock horror, where all of a sudden you're just walking down, dee 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 dee, no change in music, and then smash, this thing comes in. The other one was that psychological fear, where you open a room and you see somebody crouched over another person, and then they slowly get up and turn around, and you see that it's an undead, walking dead, zombie, whatever you want to call it, walker. And that's nearly just terrifying because you've got like 3 bullets at that point or something like that, so you got to put it down with a headshot right away, or it could get messy. My only problem with the game is I love the first game, the Umbrella Corporation, and what they did and their experiments and so on and so forth. I think it was really cool. I loved it. However, as the game progressed, it got a little weirder. Like you'd run into these frog, lizard creature men, and you're like, I thought this is about zombies. And it's not. It's about all kinds of things that this corporation has been concocting. But then you get to a room with like a great white shark in a cage, and it starts to flood the room, and it comes in, and you got to watch out for a shark in a mansion, in a basement. I mean, it's possible. Obviously, it is, you know, the corporation set that up. However, like, I liked the undead feel of it. Although the first one was completely acceptable. From start to finish, although it got weird at times, I really liked it. And a few of those that followed were still good. Some even better, maybe, technically speaking. But the first one was the only one that brought sheer terror to playing it. Because after that first scare, you never knew when the next one was coming. And they came. But I don't think anything was ever worse than that. As bad as that. Spiders are all over me. Get them off. Okay. I need to get on here. Twisted Metal 2. Man, I didn't play the first one. I wish I had. I probably will go back someday and check it out. But me, Corey, Brian, Artie. This was one of those times where everyone was still hanging out, I think. And we would just play tournaments all night some nights. It was so good. And we'd trade off, and, you know, you had your favorite character after a while. I switched between 1 or 2. And you just had to hunt down. It was just like a first-person shooter, but with cars. But it was just so different. Like, the dynamics and physics and everything about it made it fun. Because, like, you could try to, like, launch missiles. Like, you could snipe and launch missiles off the top of the building and try to hit people that you see hiding, or you know, go invisible, and all these cool things you could do, and it was just fun. There was a lot of strategy. Or you could be a powerhouse and just go after people, but you had to have a pretty strong vehicle for that. And so that I just remember many nights playing that. And there's another game coming up. I hope I don't forget to mention the comparison between the two. Man, can't keep up these days. There's my phone. I was just compared to one of the zombies in Thriller. By my friend Greg Autry. Great artist, by the way. Greg Autry. I don't think he's got a lot of art up online. He's got, well, if you know him on Facebook, you can check out his stuff, and it's just so much more amazing than anything I could ever hope to draw. Like, it's so good. There's some natural raw talent right there. But Twisted Metal 2, yeah, it's a great game. All of them. Twisted Metal Black. I don't remember a bad one, really. Driver. That was another game that when it first came out, the physics of like going up the hills in San Francisco and just like it was one step away from my favorite game of all time. And the first game did appear on this system. But Driver, that was the reason. It was very fun to drive the cars around the city and like play with the jumps and physics and stuff like that. I liked playing that open sandbox more than I enjoyed playing the campaign of it. But then came Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I remember playing that first one, and they only got better up until and including, I would say, 3. 4, I'm on the fence about. They added the pogoing ability, but I never used that. It was just, once again, too many buttons to... That was a game that I could button mash and score huge on. Like, we would play that, I mean, we played that for literally for years, that series. But the first one, like, we played it into the ground, like, till we opened up every secret, and we would just go back and forth, beating each other's high scores, because it was so fluid. Like, when you got on the skateboard and went up a ramp, you could feel it in the pit of your stomach. Kind of like Excite Bike, like I was talking about for Nintendo the other night, where even though there's nothing causing you that should cause you, but it's like watching roller coaster videos. You still get that sensation a little bit, or at least I do. So, Tony Hawk, I can skate forward. I used to be able to ollie, but that's about the extent of my skating. Like, anything beyond that, I'm in trouble. But I can skate. I can skate around on a skateboard and not feel like I'm going to fall off, which I'm happy with that. But in Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I was a pro skater. I was the best of the best, sir. Oh, so good. It was neck and neck with me and Brad, but he would get all the specials off. Like, he would build up his meter, and then he'd just start pulling off the specials, which are usually like up, left, X, or, so on and so forth. Up, left, down, square. So you had to know all these button combinations as you're leaving the ramp to try to pull off at least one, and you want to spin at the same time to build up your multiplier. But I would just go up and swipe. Sometimes when I got really high, I'd be swipe, and I'd do all these crazy tricks, like a grab trick, a flip trick, maybe a special if I got lucky, and spin a few times, and when you'd land it, your multiplier would be like, something crazy. So that, like, even though I only got a few of those pulled off without crashing, they were fun still, and when I did land one, it felt so good to watch that score just go up by the millions sometimes. Maybe not that high. Yeah, so that's my PlayStation story. I got one more PlayStation story to tell you. I was at the Silver City Galleria, the bigger mall that opened up in Taunton, Mass. And Brad worked at Circuit City, and I used to go in there with Corey. We'd literally just sit there in that movie room and watch movies and get popcorn. And, like, when Brad worked there, we were all set, because he worked in that department, so he didn't give a shit. And we'd just sit there and watch movies and eat popcorn for a while, because it was cheap, and we didn't have to pay to go to the movies. Well, the PlayStation was out, and the Sega Saturn was out. And I remember I was at Circuit City, and I was going to buy a new system that day. Actually, I had no intentions of it. This was my first endeavor into credit cards. I remember they're like, "Oh, would you like to open a Circuit City credit card?" I'm like, I don't think I've ever had a credit card before at that point. I was like, okay. And I got one on the spot. I'm like, wait a minute. I have a credit card? It's $500. And at the time, I remember, like, I probably made that much a week or something. I don't know. No, probably not that much. But in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I can just pay this off in a few months. I wasn't thinking that I still had other bills to pay and like life to live, and so I got that one, and I got an American Eagle one that day too, because I was like, credit cards. Oh, well, all right. It's like I can get free stuff. I was too young to understand the concept. No one explained it to me. I needed to have it explained to. So I've got this credit card. I've got a choice to make. Like, or I could get anything at this point. I'm like, I can't remember how much it was at the time. You know, I was a kid. Like, 2000 was probably like a fortune to me. I was just like, $2,000. I could buy crazy shit right now. And I probably did. Well, I almost got the Saturn and the PlayStation, but I was rational enough at the time, or Corey was probably saying, dude, just get one of them. That I just kept looking at the back of the boxes, at the games that were coming out or available. They'd put little pictures of them, really small, but side by side, they looked so close. But the PlayStation had a few games coming out that were like had to have games for me, like, oh my god, I need that, like probably the new Twisted Metal or Driver 2 or whatever, you know what I mean? No, those would be bad examples, but ultimately it was the back of the PlayStation's box, the first one, that lured me in. I liked the amount of games they were showing. The controller I was a little nervous about because it was something new to me and I knew I was going to have a hard time getting used to it. But I went with it, and I was glad I did. I felt bad disappointing Sega, but Sega Saturn clearly turned out to not be one of the best systems. Brad will still profess that it was, but, well, we all get a little crazy from time to time. Oh my god, 26 minutes. Let's wrap this up right this moment. My god, I am terribly sorry to keep you this long. We got Dreamcast and PS2 and GameCube coming up. I'm gonna spaceship. I'm gonna try to do Dreamcast tonight because I love the Dreamcast. So if you want to hear the Dreamcast one, eventually it'll be on the next video. If you're going to bed like I should be doing, then have a great night. Go make somebody smile tomorrow, and let's make the world spin way happier together. Starting tomorrow. It's a new leaf. It's the last day of your life. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Have a great night, or I'll see you on the Dreamcast video in just a moment.